All stories need conflict. If the rogues of Gotham City had access to proper medical treatment, there would be no Batman. Video game narratives operate similarly, but their existence is necessitated by both storytelling beats and their design as games. What challenges protagonists, and by proxy players, between the title screen and the end credits? Sometimes it's the literal external forces standing in the way. The Joker, King K. Rool's Kremlings, or the fascist enclave of Fallout. Other times, it's internal. The desire to move past one's trauma or to grow from it, even in the midst of tension and other circumstances. Conflict's primary purpose, no matter the form, no matter the medium, is simple: to add uncertainty as to whether a character's goal will ultimately be achieved. Conflict is what drives the Dead Space series in more varied ways than many other series I can consider. It approaches conflict in a number of concrete ways, but begs with each entry to frame those same forces a little differently. In the second entry, 2011's Dead Space 2, players reassume the mantle of engineer Isaac Clarke 3 years after escaping the horrors aboard the USG Ishimura and Aegis 7. Isaac has been under close observation and is undergoing quote-unquote therapy in a state-sanctioned facility ever since his escape in the last entry. The setting shifts from deep space to relatively close to home, Titan Station, or the Sprawl, a colony built around the remnants of Saturn's eponymous moon. Titan itself is a monument to humanity's advancement, serving as ground zero for the very first planet crack so many years prior. Things quickly escalate as the facility is overrun by necromorphs. Isaac is forced to piece together what drew the Scourge to the Sprawl, all while he battles against opposing forces, human and alien, along with increasingly violent hallucinations of his deceased girlfriend, Nicole. Dead Space 2 retains the elements of conflict established in its predecessor, but elaborates further by introducing conflict with society and conflict with self. Unitology, the religious following peppered throughout Dead Space, takes center stage in Dead Space 2. Unitologists, under the guise of being non-affiliated allies, lure Isaac to them so as to use the knowledge imparted to him following exposure to the Red Marker on Aegis 7. Ever since the Ishimura incident, Isaac has been able to see symbols and instructions in the hallucinations the marker has left him with, and Unitologists seek to exploit that ability in order to create more markers throughout space. Until players learn that these allies are Unitologists, it's business as usual, an offering to help stave off or even stop the hallucinations that Isaac is suffering from. Leading up to that point, we get to learn in-game about the public-facing background of Unitology, including its place in and throughout society, so much so that fighting against them is akin to fighting against society. Unitology is a wide-reaching religion operating on and within all of its levels, from society's leaders to its citizenry. Amidst constant galactic expansion and the human experience being stretched across the stars, simple creeds and mantras of unity were an effective focus for the organization, propelling it into the largest religious following and most rapidly expanding faith in all of human history. For their public-facing image, Unitology is highly evangelical, constantly in a state of recruitment. Whether this evangelization is mundane, genuine, or sinister depends entirely on the church member, often dictated by their position within Unitology. More on that next. Unitologist churches, at least as explored in Dead Space 2, are just as much sites of conversion as they are houses of worship and ritual. Entire sections are devoted to small-scale projection theaters, gift shops, and friendly lore dumps pumped through in-house speakers. This is as much to convince you to join them as it is for them to gauge how long they can hold on to you. Behind the scenes, Unitologists are obsessed with life after death and the unity they believe it comes with. In controlled environments, like the Sprawl pre-invasion, Unitologists are cryogenically frozen upon death so their body doesn't decay, leaving it in perfect condition, ready for convergence, the prophesized making all things whole that Unitologists await. In more time-sensitive situations like the Ishimura incident, followers may commit mass suicide to prepare their bodies for a more short-term transformation. Outside of major necromorph outbreaks, Unitology is a highly materialistic organization. Between the gift shops and monetizing little black marker paperweights, they also require heavy sums of money from followers to advance in the faith. With each advancement, more and more secrets are divulged. Unitology's insular us versus them mentality ensures that sensitive information stays within the church, while also ensuring that the highest paying members of the church have that money. Only positions of power and authority throughout the galaxy have access to those kinds of funds. Everyone else, given the messaging, can just be part of the system as a follower, giving bits and pieces what they can afford throughout their time in the faith. That said, magnify those bits and pieces by largest religion in history numbers, and it adds up pretty quickly. With this level of influence and access to resources, Unitology was able to orchestrate the Ishimura incident by embedding Unitologists throughout its crew, including its captain. More, they were directly responsible for releasing necromorphs into and around Titan Station in the hopes of creating more necromorphs through the ensuing carnage. Elaborating, the leadership of Unitology, the same that Isaac was allied with in the beginning of Dead Space 2, knew that was their ultimate goal, but they manipulated lower-ranking members of the church to do the actual work of opening the floodgates, per se. Conflict with society often places individual people in positions of service to or against those larger systems or leaders. Dead Space 2 lets us explore Unitology more in depth than before, giving us a glimpse into their indoctrinating, overarching foundation, not just their bloody, cultish results. Familiar elements of faith are twisted and magnified in Unitology, but the similarities between fiction and reality are everywhere. They, and religion as a whole, are a perfect societal force to reckon with. On the flip side of church is state, here embodied by EarthGov, the Earth Government Colonial Alliance. Director Hans Tideman embodies EarthGov as he oversees Titan Station operations both before and during the necromorph outbreak. More personally, Tideman was directly involved in recovering Isaac after the events aboard the Ishimura. Upon return, Tideman locked Isaac in a state-sanctioned facility on Titan due to what Isaac has witnessed and what he is capable of. Creating more markers. Initially, EarthGov keeps Isaac alive due to the knowledge the red marker embedded in his mind. As players and Isaac learn, EarthGov and Tideman forced Isaac to undergo invasive procedures to extract that knowledge from the visual receptors of his brain. Their hope is to use that knowledge and the constructed marker to both understand the object and to harness its energy-based properties, energy and resource shortages being a constant struggle of the Dead Space setting. Isaac and the information he houses in his mind are more useful than he is a liability, despite Tideman's reservations. In a moment of defeat much later, Tideman laments.
I knew you were trouble from the start, but they told me you were necessary. That your mind was the purest. I spent years sifting through your demented brain. This is not the way it was supposed to happen.
Well, how was it supposed to happen, Ty?
By the time Isaac regains consciousness in the facility he's been kept in, the outbreak has begun again, and Isaac is on a kill list from EarthGov. Now that Isaac has outlived his usefulness, he is just a loose end that needs tying off. With Isaac on the run, Tideman knows that he is a direct threat to the marker, and takes all manner of steps to stop Isaac's advance, using the station's full capabilities and the power of the localized armed forces to do so. Things he is able to do because of his position within society, acting on its behalf. Despite his efforts to evacuate the sprawl once the necromorphs were released into the population, Tideman and EarthGov still perpetuate more destruction than they do salvation. The EarthGov body has been involved with the markers for hundreds of years, covering up and spinning all manner of tragedies as definitely not alien-related. They are the atoms orbiting the nucleus of the main threat, believing that they ultimately have control over it. Despite so many instances of death and destruction from the original marker's discovery on Earth to as recently as the Ishimura incident, EarthGov always chooses to proceed. They are never deterred by the destruction left in the marker's wake. It only spurs them onward. No loss of life is too catastrophic for them to stop. From Director Tideman, as the marker is awoken by the influx of newly created necromorphs,
We had it under control! Clark, this is not our fault! We were so close to understanding it!
and again as Isaac approaches the marker to destroy it, Tideman between the two.
The research in that marker is worth every life we just lost! I won't let you throw all this away!
Tideman is the embodiment of an arm of society no longer serving society, and a perfect antagonistic force. As a collective power, they saw the effects of the marker and ignored all the warnings, using their great power and influence to suppress the truth and proceed forward, instead of adjusting for or defending against what the markers were capable of. Additionally, a mysterious endgame communication hints at an unnamed overseer whose response to the Titan Station disaster is one of inconvenience. They note that other sites will have to pick up the pace as though this were a simple business transaction gone sideways. Untold numbers of people perished on Titan Station, but EarthGov's stretch is so wide that its highest members can see the entire situation as a misstep to be calculated for, rather than a monumental loss of human life. Between both EarthGov and Unitology, it's also telling that they're both fighting to possess Isaac, whether to use him or dispose of him. A recurring element of conflict with society is that of dehumanization, of being a cog or a vessel for powers and systems far greater than the individual. Neither group cares about Isaac. In the case of EarthGov, they chose to exploit what he had seen and ultimately tried to dispose of him rather than help him and others who had suffered similarly at the hands of the marker. Unitology, based on their objectives, would have done the exact same thing had their extraction plan succeeded. It is the choice and the ultimate downfall of society's most powerful agents to dehumanize the people that they are designed to serve. More than the necromorphs, EarthGov, or Unitology, the one thing that stands most strongly against Isaac is Isaac himself. From start to finish, Isaac is in a constant state of inner turmoil brought about by location, circumstance, regret, and repression. All of them affect him so strongly because of his experience, what he has seen, and what he has survived. Isaac isn't familiar with Titan Station, but he is familiar with the USG Ishimura. The planet Cracker has long since been repossessed by EarthGov, being deep-cleaned and prepped for decommission, and is exactly as Isaac left it 3 years prior, cleaning tarp and downed lighting systems notwithstanding. The Ishimura sequence is a fascinating look into Isaac's location-based trauma, manifesting in different hallucinations than he had been experiencing up to that point. Aboard the Ishimura, he experiences flashbacks and ghost pains rather than full-blown interactions with his hallucinations. As covered in text logs, all the original assimilated crew had been reduced to sludge after the Red Marker's destruction in dead space. What Isaac is experiencing are new intruders from Titan interspersed over his own memories flooding back as he traverses the doomed vessel once again. But the most prevalent source of inner conflict is Nicole, Isaac's girlfriend, both as a positive and negative anchor. For most of the experience, Nicole manifests as an openly hostile, challenging, and violent hallucination. Between her introduction against the Red Marker, it can be assumed she has some tie to the marker itself, perhaps its influence or reach within Isaac's mind. By taking the form of someone familiar and regretful, the marker can personify and amplify Isaac's deepest traumas. This may be an alternative method of ultimately killing the subject, as Isaac has proven capable of defending himself against traditional necromorphs. But digging so deep into the subject's mind, manifesting that imperative in such a personal way, makes it a perfect example of conflict against self. The recurring piece, whether it's marker-controlled or Isaac-initiated, is the sense of repression surrounding Nicole's appearances. As Isaac encounters and overcomes Nicole's various appearances, she grows increasingly more hostile, challenging him to look inward and discover, or admit, just what she is. "Who am I, Isaac?" is the general theme surrounding all of her appearances. For most of the experience, she is something to resist, something that antagonizes and torments Isaac.
I would forgive you? You never found my
Kicking off the final third of the game, Isaac is ambushed by the Nicole hallucination and finally admits to her that he can't let go of her, regretful as he is because of how much she meant to him, how much she still means to him. Isaac believes so strongly that he condemned Nicole to death by encouraging her to go aboard the Ishimura, and has held on to that belief ever since, where it's festered and rotted throughout his imprisonment. Showing and admitting how tightly he's held on, perhaps even more tightly since confirming her death on the Ishimura, finally drops the facade of anger in the hallucination. Whether through Isaac's shift in perspective or the marker realizing a new approach for its ultimate goal, the hallucination shifts to simply Nicole, speaking normally, acting like a person. Here, she becomes something to join. It is, after all, easier to go along with someone when they're not screaming through static and alien script at you. But the marker capitalizes on that inner conflict, bringing it up to the surface and managing to ride in a car that Isaac has already built, rather than try to run after it. On the same vein is Ellie, another survivor that has accompanied Isaac since he escaped the unitologists earlier on. They battle throughout Titan Station together, ultimately reaching the government sector where the marker is housed before Ellie discovers a gunship they can use to escape on. At this point, Isaac has come to accept that in order to destroy the marker, he has to die. While Ellie is performing diagnostic checks inside the ship, Isaac releases and jettisons the craft off the station. Although Ellie is beside herself with anger, Isaac believes he is doing right, justifying what he's doing against what he is holding himself responsible for. He is trying to prevent another Nicole. Isaac wants to escape with Ellie, but he needs to destroy the marker. Shifting back, the kinder, gentler Nicole is unnerving at first, but she taps into the core of Isaac's psyche. Even though he regrets what happened to Nicole, she was such a core part of his life that he couldn't bear to let her go, even as she took form to hurt him. Throughout the final gauntlet to the marker, Nicole begs Isaac to let her go, that he knows what he has to do.
Fighting with Isaac. You can't fight it. You have to let her go.
I'll never see you again.
Isaac, stop it. There's no other way. You have to do this.
That battle between want and need is at the core of any conflict against self, and the manifestation capitalizes on that. Isaac wants to hold on to Nicole, but he needs to get to the marker, even if it means losing that aspect of Nicole. Ultimately, Nicole's gentler visage falls away at the foot of the marker, revealing the marker's ultimate plan inside Isaac's mind. By killing Isaac, a maker of this marker, convergence can properly begin. Isaac laments having trusted the Shade and does battle within his mind against the image of Nicole, now acting as the vessel for the marker itself. A true manifestation of conflict against self as two fractals of Isaac's mind trade blows against each other. After successfully destroying the marker, Isaac sits down, the station destructing around him, ready to die on his terms.
You complete bastard! Was this your great plan? Dump me off and die?
Full of bad ideas, remember?
Yeah, well, here's another one. I'm crashing through the roof to get you. Now move your ass.
Wait, no, Ellie, it's too late. Stay clear of the station.
Yeah, well, you don't really have a say this time. Heads up!
And we're forced to jump back to wants and needs. Isaac wants Ellie to live just like he did before, so now he needs to live. Isaac is almost always put in the position of fighting against his own wants, his sense of self, so that others may live, whether it's just Ellie or as many people as could be saved by one fewer marker. In Ellie's risky maneuver, Isaac is shown, even for just a moment, that people care about him, and that maybe he doesn't have to fight all of his battles alone, even the ones where he's squaring up against himself. Dead Space 2 manages to pull back the curtain on the societal powers that oppose Isaac, how deep into one's own mind we can sink, and just how difficult a battle against ourselves can truly be. By exploring those forces and their hurdles, we blow open the doors for storytelling potential, both critical of those societal systems and introspective to what makes us tick far beneath the surface. Looking forward, some may treat the Dead Space series like the older Alien movies. It stops after the second one. But gameplay departures aside, the final entry in the original trilogy has a fascinating take on conflict. Dead Space 3 explores conflict on the polar extremes with both the lowest and the absolute highest. Conflict against man and conflict against God.